This video will help you to consider the tracking and communication of evidence of learning through PowerTeacher Pro for the renewed Language Arts 7 and 8 curricula. The sample formative and summative assessments used in this video are examples from the Planning in Language Arts through Inquiry-Based Learning document and accompanying videos. Before proceeding with this video, be sure to review them. You can find these and other related resources at curriculum.novascotia.ca. To begin, it is important to consider how to set up your PowerTeacher Pro gradebook to communicate ongoing assessments and evaluations of student learning. Setting up your gradebook will help as we input information in order to support report card development. We need to think about how to configure PowerTeacher Pro to ensure that it accurately communicates learning over time. Let's begin by setting up our gradebook. First, we navigate to Settings and select Traditional Grade Calculations. Under Attributes, select Specific Weights. This will ensure that only the outcomes will be considered in grade calculation and that completing learner profiles and tracking skills using the developmental codes independent and with support will not impact learners' grades. Because you will return to each outcome multiple times over the course of the year, you will want to consider how to configure your gradebook to best reflect learning in relation to the outcomes. For each outcome, PowerTeacher Pro will automatically default to using the 3 most recent assessments to help calculate a grade for report cards. It is important that you consider what assessments should be included to accurately represent student achievement. For this video, we included a range of sample assessments in relation to the outcome. Learners will create oral, written, and visual communication forms for a range of audiences and purposes. To communicate information to students and families, we set up our gradebook to help show what has been assessed and where to access feedback provided to students. Though the default setting is the 3 most recent, it may be necessary to alter the number of scores used to calculate a report card grade to more accurately convey student learning in relation to outcomes over the reporting period. That can be done here on the Outcome Grade Calculation screen. We will consider some specific examples later in this video. We also want to consider how we can set up our categories to organize and communicate information related to evidence of learning we have gathered. You can choose to set up your categories according to what makes sense for your communication plan. For example, you may wish to set up your categories in relation to the inquiries your students are exploring. In this example, we have chosen to title the categories Formative and Summative. This allows us to easily communicate which assessments are evidence for learning and which are evidence of learning. When it comes to the reporting period, this will also help us to more easily identify which assessments would be appropriate to include for reporting purposes. Because formative assessments are assessments for learning, we chose not to attach achievement levels to the ones used in our example. Let's take a look at how we might enter a formative assessment into PowerTeacher Pro. In this case, we are gathering evidence of learning as students begin to investigate how ideas can be developed. We planned an assessment where we could gather evidence through observations and conversations using an anecdotal record. First, we name the assignment to make clear to students and families the purpose of the assessment. Then, we set the score type to collected only. We attach this assignment to our formative category. In the description, we included information about how the evidence of learning was gathered and assessed. This is also where we can link to the rubric we use that identifies the success criteria and that guides the comments we record. For each learner, we included comments based on success criteria from our rubric. We can update or adjust comments for individual learners as appropriate. Because formative assessments are assessments for learning, we chose to provide feedback rather than attaching a level of achievement. This is to support learners as they develop skills and explore concepts while they learn to create various communication forms. If you do choose to grade a formative assessment, remember that you will want to ensure that it is not being included in the calculation of the learner's grades for reporting periods in order to accurately report on student achievement in relation to expected learning outcomes. In the example, learners engaged in 3 summative assessment opportunities over the course of the inquiry. For summative assessments, we chose to attach a level of achievement. In the name of the assignment, we included which language processes were being assessed in relation to the outcome. This is one way you can track which language processes you are assessing in relation to outcomes in order to engage learners in a balance of language processes over the course of the year. Once you have included language processes in the title, you can filter by language process to quickly see how many times it has been assessed. Let's look at one example of a summative assessment. After learners had the opportunity to engage with the research process, they had the option to create an infographic or a how-to manual. When we named our formative assignments, we named our assignments to reflect the learning that students were engaging in. In this case, we identified the communication form in the title because our outcome specifically references communication forms, so it's important information to capture. While the learners were assessed using the same rubric, we created 2 assignments in PowerTeacher Pro so that it is clear which communication form learners chose. Only the assignment the student chose will be visible through the student and parent portals. In the renewed 7 and 8 language arts curricula, we report based on outcomes. The language processes of listening, reading, viewing, speaking, writing, and representing are embedded in outcomes and appear as concepts. At different times throughout the year, it may be appropriate to assess a specific language process. So, for example, when you are helping learners to develop speaking and writing strategies or reading and viewing strategies in relation to specific outcomes. However, when it comes to reporting, you are reporting learners' achievement in relation to the entire outcome, and so it will be important to consider which assessments to include in your grade calculations to ensure you are reporting on the entire outcome. Though the default setting is the 3 most recent, it may be necessary to alter the number of scores used to calculate a report card grade to more accurately convey student learning in relation to outcomes over the reporting period. That can be done here on the Outcome Grades calculation screen. For further information on setting up your gradebook using PowerTeacher Pro, please visit the in-school site or contact your region or the CSAP. The Planning and Language Arts through Inquiry-Based Learning document and planning video series, along with other resources, can be found on curriculum.novascotia.ca.